Okay, thanks for joining us for our final session of the Attorney Case Manager Work Group. So today, just to quickly review, we'll follow the same ground rules, which are, as you've seen in the prior meetings, just to participate, speak one at a time, be candid and respectful, keep focused on the topic or question, to keep all active discussions to these meetings versus over email, and that OPDS staff will keep our feedback to a minimum. So what we hope to do today is really twofold. I think what we gathered from these sessions were that there's really kind of two bodies of work that is and will come from this, and that is both, updating the practice routines to make sure they're representative of practice and informative about best practice, but there's also clearly some work outside of that document that should happen to really support the team, and that that's really has to do with our engagement and information with system partners, as well as just being more clear with our providers. So we'll talk about both of those things today. So the first thing I wanted to do is just review for everyone the process that we used to arrive at updating the practice routines. So as you probably guessed, we took notes during these sessions. We also, earlier on in this process, we allowed people to provide written feedback by email directly to us, which we also compiled. And then taking those comments that we received over each of these sessions, Gloria compiled that information into to identify whether there were trends or themes of the types of thoughts or concerns or ideas people had. And then by doing that, she was able to identify where there was, a critical interest in modifying or updating or adding to the practice routines to make them more representative and beneficial. And then we use that information to update the practice routines, keeping in mind through the updates that we were staying within the parameters of the Pcrp model and its programmatic integrity that aligns with evidence-based practices. So that's the process that we used. Gloria, I don't know if you want to add anything just to describe that.
That was a great description. I can answer questions people have if they want more nuanced description of what the analysis was. But essentially, it was looking through all of the things that people said or wrote, finding the themes and seeing how often they came up, and using that to guide our modifications.
Okay, so that's the process. So now I'm going to share a different screen and we're going to walk through the updated document, and you'll see the format. So I'm going to switch my screen. Goodbye that screen. Okay. Now, if people could let me know, do you see both the case manager practice routines and the attorney practice routines on this screen?
Yeah. Yes. We can't see all of the case manager ones. If you go to the top right-ish corner and click on that, like caret, the up caret, under comments and dictate. Oh, other corner.
Uh-huh.
Go down, see that like up caret, click on that.
Okay.
And then we can't see the new practice routine on the case manager, so if you just scroll down a little bit.
So what we did, as described, what this document shows is the updated language, the new draft language, as well as how, if at all, it is different or modified from the original language. And I hope that this format is helpful to you. We could also send around the actual just final document, but we thought this would be helpful so you could understand how and what changes were made. So I'm going to go through this, one by one, and we're definitely interested to get people's thoughts. So, first, this is the case manager section. There were no changes to the abiding by the OPDS practice principles. In the second section, 1A, about adhering to attorney-client confidentiality and protecting confidential information, we modified some of the language and we moved a portion of it to a new section. That's the third section we'll go to, which is the interdisciplinary team section. For 1B, this previously read provide support and advocacy at the direction of the referring attorney. What we're going to do, but a lot of the feedback that we received was around better understanding what support and advocacy can look like. So we're going to be creating a companion document that better elaborates on that, which we'll talk about more later. In C, providing attorneys with regular client updates and to maintain consistent contact as determined by the. So this one, a lot of the themes that we heard from this group was about having a common understanding about how communication will happen, how record sharing will happen, what the plan will look like, and establishing that at the outset. So this is an example of how we think there should be a formal plan, a communication record sharing plan. And so this refers back to that, and we'll talk more about that later. I think, and then you'll kind of see, those are just examples, and you'll see moving on that most of them have modification of language and were reworked, but we only have one that's new. And this is the idea of creating a case manager plan that is a living document at the initial step of at the outset of the building the team, and then using that just to make sure everyone's on the same page. So, and similarly for the attorney practice routines, most of them were just modified or moved around. The only one we added was the last one that says, consider whether request or expectation of the case manager may be better executed or more appropriately placed with a different resource, i.e. an expert investigator or mental health provider. And again, that was because a common theme that we heard was some kind of not full understanding of what is the appropriate role of a case manager in advocacy versus other providers. A lot of the changes were really just adding to that both section and making it a little bit more robust and clear. Because again, one of the main themes that we really heard throughout the sessions was about the need for a meeting of the minds and for the case manager to know how the attorney wants to communicate, and vice versa, having everyone understand how they're going to get information, with what frequency, what the work's going to be, what kind of direction is needed. So this version, we hope, provides a little bit more clarity and really speaks to that interest in having some shared understanding and planning at the outset. So this section, and I'll just pause for a minute to allow people to read it. And then I'll talk a little bit about what it is. So does anyone have thoughts on this section? Or are there other sections that people would like me to scroll to for them to review? If questions about what? I know this is an overview, and it might be a little hard to sink it all in this format. But to the extent I can walk through specific sections with more detail, I can. But you can see from this one, it's really about establishing expectations and having a process for, the team to be built and a strategy to be built based on that client need to kind of make sure that the attorney's practices, the case manager's practices, and the specific needs of that client in that case can be incorporated in, and that can be circled back to. And also about the need for, because another theme we heard was about, again, some questions about, questions about the practices. And we know that the case managers have a frequent contact with, Dana Brandon or Shannon Getman, and have that kind of group support to brainstorm and vet ideas. But we also wanted to make sure that the teams or the attorneys know that OPDS is a resource when there are questions about how to best use the team model. So we added that as well. So any thoughts on this? Well, hopefully it seems aligned with practices you are already doing or practices that make sense, and will provide more, concrete guidance to people who are newer to the team model so they can understand how to move through it. Jillian, did you have something you wanted to say, or are you just sharing your screen? No.
No, but I do think it looks good, and I'm hoping that that's why we're hearing a lot of silence. Is that
yes. Good. Yes. Again, a lot of it was really just, again, the team part seemed to be the piece that we wanted to clarify the most, and just how to make communication most understood and seamless, and where the expectations are. So that's this section. The next thing, unless Gloria or Dana or Caroline have any more pieces they want to highlight in this section, we'll move to the other work that we're going to be doing outside of updating the practice routines.
I don't have anything. Looks good.
No, me neither.
Alan?
Thank you. Are you going to email these out? I mean, I'm having a hard time reading them anyway, but if I had something in my hand to hang on to, I'd feel much better.
We will be emailing them out. We didn't email them out because they were a draft, and we hoped that if there were thoughts about it, we could kind of in real time talk them through and then send out an updated draft. We can certainly send out a draft of this. And another thing just to keep in mind is, as you probably know, we're also going to do a kind of broader advisory group about a number of the different Pcrp elements, and we'll also be reviewing this with that group as well. This group was the kind of helping us create it, and then we're going to get more feedback from a broader pool. But yes, the answer is yes. That was my very long yes. Yes. Nothing from you, Gloria, about the trends or themes maybe that informed this?
No, I think you did a good job presenting. And yeah, it is hard to see. So I think it would be great to share. And I think what we wanted to hear back from you is if you feel like we accurately captured your sentiments and perspectives in this document. So if you see something that doesn't really align with what you thought you were putting forward, it may be because of the way that we did the analysis. We were looking for the more common themes and things that aligned with the Pcrp program, but we would like to hear from you if you see something that looks amiss, because we want to make sure that we captured things correctly. So perhaps, people can provide thoughts on whether or not we captured it accurately when we email it out, and everyone can have a copy in their hand because it's hard to see.
Now I will go back to the PowerPoint.
Looks like Alan has his hand raised. Sorry,
He just
I
still
missed-
has it raised. I can put it down.
Oh, sorry, missed that.
I wish you guys could just put them down for us when you call on us. Thank you. It's off.
Okay. So as I said earlier, we realized a good portion of the feedback was kind of outside what defining the roles and responsibilities could do to rectify it. There were pieces about needing more information from OPDS, needing more concrete examples to understand the roles, needing to ensure that system partners understand and appreciate the case manager role and there aren't systemic barriers to implementing it. So there are clearly things outside of this document that we learned need to be part of OPDS's work to make sure that there aren't systemic barriers to the partnership. So to that end, we kind of created our internal document about the things that we hope to accomplish over the next, year contract term. And that, is loosely in these three categories. First, just more outreach and communication to regional and local system partners. I know that Dana and Shannon and the regional case managers have done a really good job building relationships with the DHS local branches, but it seems that in some counties more than others, maybe it's turnover or different perspectives, that, randomly things will come up where case managers are not involved or allowed to get information, and we have to figure out a way to make sure that there's more understanding about that. So we're going to try to do more regular updates and connections with the local branches. So that's not a barrier, and also make sure that we are tracking those things better so we can address them quickly. Alan?
Not that I want to try to be, a 10-ton gorilla in these kind of things, but our branch here has been stiff arming CASA even. They aren't giving them anything. And I have a hunch, I know I have lunch with the branch manager here at least every couple of months. And he just shrugs his shoulders and says, I'm just following policies, which I think mainly you may need to get a hold of your counterparts at the state level, because that kind of stuff tends to trickle down. And in DHS, it trickles fast when it gets that low. So I think maybe coming from you guys top down might be a lot more effective in all that we're doing. That if you have Smith Jones, whatever her name is, on board with this, they'll all straighten up and play this one right. Otherwise, they'll just blow us off.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sorry to hear they're blowing you off, Alan. They shouldn't be doing that. But yes, I again, that was a sentiment that we heard, and we want to kind of, as the agency, we want to make sure that we can play a role in removing systemic barriers. So, that's really about us knowing about them and us responding to them and tracking them in a way so that we can bring them to management so they can care. And, I think that at least overtly, there's an interest at DHS and DOJ and OJD in making this model successful. So I hope that there's, and I do, and in the conversations I have, I do get that from them, that they see the value in this model, and it's really just about, making sure that people at every level understand it and appreciate it, and it might just honestly be just a lack of understanding or confusion. So this could really just be an education piece that just what we're saying here is OPDS will take a more active role in addressing those things. And then we also we saw the need for maybe more to update and to add maybe some documents, interdisciplinary team packet, maybe to call it. If you remember in the document we just looked at, the updated practice routines, we referred to some, plans, some like formal steps. And one is, so the first bullet here says templates and tools, for instance, a social work plan. So I know, and Dana maybe can speak to this more directly, that many case managers kind of write up a plan of what they're going to do after meeting with the client and with the attorney and understanding the strategy to kind of figure these are the objectives in the case, this is what we're working on, to kind of determine the scope, the steps, who will be involved. And we are going to try to work on a template for that so people can get a sense, and so there can be like a common language. So for instance, if an attorney is working with two different case managers, there'll be that commonality in practice, that like there'll be the same kind of plan that is used that can become more routine. Dana, I don't know if you have anything to add to that part.
No, I mean, I think you did a good job of explaining it. I think that we see this as kind of a living document that will be used by the legal team throughout the life of the case, given, case changes and circumstances changing. But yeah, I'm going to be working on a template, and I've got some, I've asked the case manager group to share some of the examples that they use in their cases to help inform that new form.
And then similarly, an initial meeting checklist we thought could be helpful, just to kind of know what information does everyone need, what documents does everyone need, what are the questions people should be asking. Again, both to kind of create a meeting of the minds with the team and also make sure the client understands the next steps. Similarly, there is a referral guide form, but maybe making that a little bit more robust as an issue spotting form. Another thing that I didn't include here is, it was kind of parking lotted in my mind for this group because I wanted to stay on the scope, but it's something we'll talk about in the advisory group, is some jurisdictions have an agreement, and I think actually in Columbia County, some attorneys have used it there. Essentially, the attorney asks the case manager to sign a document understanding the confidentiality, attorney-client privilege, just to kind of add another layer of understanding and agency and that role. And so that's something we'll discuss, whether that's kind of something that should be part of this interdisciplinary team packet. Should there be some kind of document that at the beginning of each team creation that the case manager signs the attorney-client privilege and confidentiality form? And again, I think that there could be many perspectives on that. In many, it's kind of a given, as long as as the agent of the attorney, you already have to abide by it. So it's kind of like signing a document twice. You sign it in your mind and then sign it on paper. But it could also just be something that helps everyone understand. Again, just a process for shared understanding about what everyone knows. So that's going to be something that we discuss as a possible template or tool. And then again, then some practice tips as well. We talked a lot about record sharing practices. We know that there's some attorneys who use drop boxes. Some have figured out ways to get them through DHS or the courts. And we thought that it might be helpful to compile examples of best practices so people can have more ideas about how to do that, because record sharing, information sharing is fundamental, clearly, to the team being successful. How people achieve that can be different. But it's a matter of just making sure that's like a primary piece. And again, one of the themes we heard was challenges or confusion about roles or responsibilities for record sharing. And we just want to emphasize that clearly is something that needs to be done, but there can be variation in how it is achieved. And then similarly, there already is a document that defines the case manager's role and responsibilities, but we're going to add more examples and detail to that. So maybe attorneys who are getting more used to the practice can look at it like a menu, not like a menu, but to get people's, mind rolling. These are things that can be done, because one of the themes that we heard was trying to understand what the parameters of the role is. And of course, it's always going to be an individualized role to that case and that strategy, but there seemed to be some interest in having a better understanding of the scope. And Dana, if you wouldn't mind sharing a bit about what the document looks like now and what we might add to it.
Yeah, we have a professional case manager role document that we'll be elaborating on, and I've asked our case managers, or will be asking them. We had a meeting this week to just share some concrete examples of work that they're doing on certain cases, so that we can incorporate that into this document to just give attorneys a better idea of the different types of support and advocacy that case managers can provide to their clients.
Thanks, Dana.
Mm-hmm.
And then last, making sure that we're doing regular trainings, specifically around, making sure that OPDS is fulfilling our role of ensuring that there's an understanding of privilege and ethics with case managers, bringing in our attorneys into that conversation. We'd love to figure out a way just to have a regular yearly or, every 6 months, just check in about are there ethical issues, doing trainings around that, and having that be a regular part of our training cycle. And then I'm sure other ideas will come up. So those are the next step as we've identified them. Are there other ideas for next steps that OPDS can take to better support the practice? You can think about that later. I appreciate that. So that's it. That's all we have for today. It's 12:32. This was a very pleasant meeting. I hope that people were, not that the other ones were not pleasant, but I hope that people feel like this was a worthwhile investment of your time. I can tell you that we learned a lot. I think that, obviously, Dana and I and Caroline, hear things, from here and there about, different requests or concerns, but it was really helpful to kind of hear it in this format, and consolidate it and use Gloria's research data tools to identify where there is a need for better work on our part, and how to refine this. So it's really about kind of training newer and future Pcrp teams to hopefully expand the model. So this is me saying thank you and dancing. So any final thoughts? You can just have more of your lunch hour.
Good idea. All right.
I really appreciate it. This is Leslie. I think it's useful. I mean, I think just bringing to light sort of ways to communicate better and just get everyone on the same page, because it is different. Each attorney, it's a different sort of process, which is fine. And this will give it a foundation of just covering all the bases at least. So I think it's great. Thank you.
Thank you, Leslie.
I also really feel like I personally got a lot out of being part of this. It was very helpful to hear the themes that everybody said, because it helped me notice those when they came up in the work, and kind of highlight, oh, this is important because we're all experiencing it.
Yeah, and I will just say I don't want to speak for Dana, but I think we probably both feel too that this is so much easier to use this tool and these tools that come out of this to guide case managers that we already have and to train those that are coming on new. It just really lays it out in a very clear format as to what is expected and where we should be focusing. So it's fantastic that we did this.
Thanks, Shannon. I just have to say, Jordan, I know it's not intentional, but your dogs are just the best. And everyone just has to look at them sleeping on each other right there. And since we have extra time, I feel like it was okay for me to just point that out, even though this is a live meeting on YouTube. So
I'm pretty convinced they know when they're on camera. They have it locked down that they like the cat, the dogs, everyone lays in very specific positions right over my shoulder. Like they know that they're seen. They know. They could be on this side. They're not.
yes, I'm glad that they're on display. Okay, well, that's it.
Karen, do you
We'll
want to
send
just,
you-
this is Caroline. I was just going to mention that we will be starting the larger PCRP advisory group. Hopefully by the end of this month, we should be getting a notice out. We obviously couldn't include everybody on both groups, but we do have, I think there are a few of you that are in this group that will also be representing your county in that group because we wanted to have a case manager and an attorney representative for each county. And as you know, this group was very specific to revamping the practice routines, whereas the PCRP advisory group will be dealing with bigger picture, brainstorming on the larger PCRP, if there's issues, concerns.
just
So we look forward to that.
Just some examples to make that a little bit more concrete. We're going to be exploring like eligibility and parameters of pre-petition representation, of post-disposition representation, of our case counting system, about the complex cases. So it's about really refining like what should be or should not be part of the program and how do we approve those things. So it's going to be kind of broader beyond just the interdisciplinary team, but about juvenile representation and how the model can support it.
And I think we've had maybe a few of our sort of parking lot topics. I think Karen mentioned this. Will likely carry over to that group. So they haven't been lost in translation. We'll be picking those up when we start those meetings.
Okay. So now I'll let you all go. Thank you so much. Enjoy
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.